You're suddenly thrust into the year 1187, standing toe-to-toe with a Crusader knight clad in full battle armor. You've got your gym membership, your protein shakes, maybe even a CrossFit routine. You feel strong. You believe you stand a chance. In a moment, you'll realize just how disastrously mistaken you are. An average Crusader knight would dismantle you so completely in combat that historians would struggle to record enough remains to prove you ever existed. Let me show you the real picture of what a Crusader knight truly was, because almost everything you think you know is false. These weren't just men who happened to have armor and a horse. They were the end product of one of the harshest, most demanding, and most thorough systems of martial training humanity has ever built. A system so effective it produced warriors whose physical ability would make today's elite special forces look like casual hobbyists. Training started at age 7.7, while modern kids are learning shoelaces. Medieval children destined for knighthood were beginning a 2-decade metamorphosis into living weapons. As pages, they studied not only letters and numbers, but also cared for horses, practiced with wooden swords, and absorbed basic fighting principles every single day. No holidays, no summer breaks, no sick days. By 14, they advanced to squires. And this stage was brutal. The conditioning alone would send most modern athletes straight to the hospital. They pushed and carried giant stone blocks. They hurled javelins deliberately heavier than battlefield weapons. They wrestled for hours at a time. They had to master the 7 points of agility: riding, swimming, and diving, shooting various weapons, climbing, tournaments, wrestling, fencing, long jumping, and even dancing. Yes, dancing. Because precise footwork in battle meant the difference between survival and death. But then comes the astonishing part. Take Jean to Le Maingre, called Boucicaut, one of the most renowned French knights of the 14th and 15th centuries. This man could climb up the underside of a ladder using only his hands. While encased in 60 pounds of steel armor, 60 pounds of metal wrapped across his whole body, and he performed an inverted climb that would challenge today's expert rock climbers, even without gear. Archaeology backs these feats. Medieval manuscripts repeatedly show knights in armor vaulting onto horses unassisted. No steps, no help, just raw strength and agility. Modern research into medieval combat shows that knights' fitness equaled that of today's pro footballers or tennis players, except they did it while carrying the weight of a small child strapped to their bodies. And that armor, everything you've heard about it is wrong. Movies have tricked us into thinking medieval plate was heavy, stiff, and slow. The truth is chilling. A full set of properly forged steel plate weighed 33 to 55 pounds, but the load was spread so perfectly that trained knights remained shockingly nimble. They could leap, sprint, roll, and fight with agility that would astonish modern audiences. Yet that agility demanded a price, one that shows how superhuman these men were. Modern biomechanical studies reveal that wearing plate armor increased energy costs 2.3 times for walking and 1.9 times for running. Knights moved at nearly double the metabolic strain of someone unarmored, and they sustained it for hours. In the chaos of battle, your modern cardio is nowhere near enough. Their weapons training was just as relentless. Sword fighting wasn't graceful dueling like the movies suggest. It was savage, merciless, and brutally effective. Forensic archaeologists studying skeletons from battlefields have discovered that most show evidence of multiple horrific injuries before death. Kills weren't clean or instant. Medieval combat meant systematically breaking your enemy apart with superior skill, strength, and endurance. Knights drilled endlessly to refine their swordsmanship, building the muscle memory and raw power to strike with deadly precision. Their training even mirrored modern progressive overload, increasing difficulty over time. Except the consequences were life or death. In a gym today, a mistake might mean a pulled muscle. In a knight's training yard, it could mean your life ended early. mental toughness was just as vital. Accounts from medieval battles describe fighters pressing on after suffering wounds that would drop most modern people instantly, through adrenaline, conditioning, and relentless willpower. Knights fought in a state of controlled fury that modern combat sports can hardly replicate, and when they entered battle, they weren't just lone fighters. They became parts of a coordinated engine of destruction that turned physics itself into a weapon. The cavalry charge was terrifyingly simple. Mass plus speed equals crushing force. An armored knight on a warhorse, lance leveled, galloping at 20 miles an hour, delivered kinetic energy, powerful enough to smash through shield walls and tear entire units apart. Chroniclers of the Crusades from the Muslim side describe the terrifying unity and impact of Frankish knights charging in formation. These weren't chaotic rushes. They were carefully organized assaults, knights riding knee to knee, forming a wedge of iron, muscle, and horseflesh that broke enemy morale before the fighting even began. And here's what makes it most terrifying for anyone today imagining they could compete. These men weren't only stronger, they were mentally engineered for violence in a way modern minds would collapse under. From childhood, they were raised to see battle not as a desperate choice, but as their life's purpose. Death on the battlefield wasn't dreaded, it was celebrated. It was welcomed as a road to honor. With your modern mindset of safety and comfort, your psyche would collapse long before your body did. The instant you saw a knight in full steel, lance aimed at your chest, the sheer terror would freeze you in place. Medieval accounts record even veteran soldiers locking up in fear when a knightly charge thundered forward. What chance would you honestly have? Now let's consider the weapons, because here the reality grows even harsher. That sword at a knight's side wasn't just a piece of sharpened steel. It was a finely tuned tool of death, perfected through centuries of design to inflict maximum damage with minimum effort. Forget the flimsy props in films. Real medieval longswords weighed just 2 to 4 pounds, yet in trained hands, they moved as if they were part of the knight's own body. And the techniques? They were devastating. Sword fighting wasn't only slashes and thrusts. It blended cuts, stabs, grapples, and even smashing blows with the pommel into seamless combinations. Modern martial artists spend decades chasing that level of flow. Knights drilled until these moves became pure instinct, usable while bleeding, exhausted, or even fighting in total darkness. And here's where your confidence really breaks. Knights weren't limited to swords. They mastered entire arsenals: lances for mounted shock, maces for crushing armor, daggers for lethal finishes up close, and crossbows for ranged attacks. Maybe you've watched tutorials online. They spent 20 years perfecting every weapon they touched. The contrast grows sharper when you think about recovery and pain. Modern athletes train hard, but rely on rest, nutrition, and therapy to bounce back. Knights? They trained through agony, fought through injuries that would bench today's professionals for months, and developed pain resistance that seemed inhuman. Chroniclers describe men still swinging weapons with broken bones, deep cuts, and wounds that would drive modern people into shock. This wasn't just adrenaline or bravado. It was systematic conditioning, designed to keep them lethal no matter the trauma. All your modern edges supplements, advanced science, clever techniques mean nothing against someone built over decades for a single mission. To kill other human beings in hand-to-hand combat. Even speed worked against you. Think you're fast? Knights sharpened reflexes in endless duels with other hardened fighters, learning to read movement, predict strikes, and counter instantly long before you'd process what was happening. And even if by some miracle you landed a hit, you'd be that armor you struck wasn't just forged protection. It was crafted by master smiths to deflect and absorb punishment. It doubled as a psychological weapon, the clang of your blow bouncing uselessly off steel, while a relentless warrior advanced, would be the last sound before you learned what medieval defeat truly meant. The historical record is both clear and chilling. Excavations of medieval battle sites reveal the precision of knightly combat. Skeletons show clean, targeted injuries, evidence of energy conserving. Techniques designed to kill efficiently. These weren't reckless swings driven by rage. They were deliberate, practiced methods executed by men who treated combat as both craft and science. And here's the sobering truth. Crusader knights weren't even the absolute peak of medieval warriors. They're simply the best documented in Europe. Other orders, the Templars, the Hospitallers, the Germanic knights trained under similarly punishing systems and reached comparable levels of deadly skill. So, the next time you're proud of your workout routine, consider this: a 12-year-old squire, after just 5 years of training, already had enough combat expertise to overwhelm most modern adults. A fully developed Crusader knight represented the height of one of history's most lethal warrior cultures. Against him, you wouldn't survive seconds. You wouldn't even last long enough to grasp how hopelessly outclassed you were. And that's not meant as an insult. It highlights how extraordinarily capable these men truly were. They were forged through a process, engineered to turn humans into weapons. And it succeeded with terrifying precision. The difference between medieval military readiness and modern civilian fitness isn't just large, it's almost infinite. Yes, we've gained technology, medicine, and ease of life, but we've lost touch with what human bodies and minds can reach when survival demands total mastery of violence. The Crusader knight remains proof of what humans once became when forged by necessity. So the next time you imagine that modern strength surpasses that of the past, remember the knight and be thankful you'll never have to find out firsthand.